Hello everyone, welcome to Cord QA meeting, which is happening on January 18th. In today's agenda, we are going to discuss the bugs for 5.0 and then we identify the blockers for 5.0 and then we'll work accordingly. Hope everybody can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, thanks. There are two filters that I created. One is the blocker list for 5.0, where we already have the affected version. Some of the bugs we identified and then made them as affected version for 5.0, and we can go over that list. And there is another bug list, which is the grabbing all the outstanding bugs from the SC release, and we can quickly go through them and see if we want anything else to be added into the blocker bucket. So
Just a quick question. I thought we were setting affected version to 5.0 on every bug that affected 5.0, not just release blockers. Were we supposed to only set it for release blockers?
yes, I think that is what we did even in 4.1.
I think that setting it for them, there's also the affected version is supposed to be set for all, but if I don't think necessarily all of these are blockers, so maybe we should go through and remove affected version from the ones that we don't consider blockers.
Yes,
So
definitely.
I think I agree. I think I agree with Sujitra that we should go through and do that. I realize this is confusing. Sorry about that.
Yeah, or maybe I think for next release we might need to identify in another way instead of having the affected version. Maybe have another way to identify them to the bug script. So what we do in ONOS is we create a bug sprint, and whatever bugs that we identify that are blockers for that release, we just move those to the bug sprint, and then we keep tracking that bug sprint until the bugs in that
I
bucket.
just I just realized what we had decided on, and what we decided on was setting priority to highest, and it was the blocker item, and the scenario, and setting we should set affected version to the next version for everything that's a part of that revision. But if it's not a blocker, it's not, the priority isn't set to highest.
Okay, so we can do that then. So we'll change the priority to the highest, and then we can just make that as the blocker then. Identify
Okay.
them as blockers.
So
Sure.
the changes here, if there's a blocker, we change its priority to highest.
Okay, sure. Yeah, they
Okay.
in this list, I think there were some bugs which were they just changed the affected version to be 5.0. I think some of them are just shown like this, so we can go through the this list actually. So can we go through this list then?
Okay, let's get started.
All right. So the first one on the list, 2181, Ono stuck with flooding of OF messages. So this causes the out of memory. I think this is the same issue that I have been observing after I investigated the logs and the flex, where I ran into an issue of out of memory. I noticed that there were a lot of the switch got disconnected, and whenever there's a disconnect, there are lots of connect messages from the switches, and then when owner's fabric is getting these messages to a large extent, then it is running out of memory. So this was also raised by Yovang some time back, and I just moved this into the bucket. We wanted to make sure that we might need to investigate this at least to see why this is happening, or why is it the switch issue, or is that we are not able to handle the issue or this many messages. Any comments?
Suchita, this is Kailash here. Can you hear me?
Hey, Kailash.
Hey, so does this sound like an ONAS bug? Have we talked to any of the ONAS guys to see if they've hit this, if it's like ONAS trying to connect to a particular device? Because it doesn't sound like a cord issue, correct?
Yeah, but then we observed on on the quad pod only. And I think Charles already looked at this issue when I looked at the this bug. I requested Jono also to take a look at the flex pod, and I just left it the way that is. It is still in out of memory, and the logs are still there with all these messages. So at least I felt that we should take a look at it, because
Yeah.
the outcome is severe. Like we are running out of memory, and then the pod is not used in a usable condition.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Any comments from developers on this? Is it okay to leave it here so at least somebody can look at it and comment on the bug?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine to leave it there. Do we consider it a blocker for the release? Because if so, I'm a little bit worried that nobody has any insights into what's going on, and if it's a blocker, then we really need to get somebody on it.
Yeah, it needs an assignee.
Yeah, at least. So anybody whom should we put this, or maybe if somebody from development can look at it and then say this only happens in a particular scenario, then we can just remove it from the blocker list. It's just that we want to make sure that we are not hitting this, and at least there is a workaround.
Is there a way we could, do you guys have a functional or a pod where this is having trouble? Because it seems that you had it happen twice, but if we can recreate it and then throw it over to Devel, that would probably make sense.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. So it happens on Flex, and Flex is the only pod that we are leaving it for 2 days. All other pods are just being rebuilt every night. So that's the reason we don't see it on other pods, and only when we leave it for 2 or more days, then we see the issue.
Okay. Do you want to assign it to yourself and then do that, and then when you've recreated the issue, pass it off to is this an RCord, or what profile is running on this?
This is RCord.
Okay, so maybe we throw it. You can throw it over to probably me or Andy or maybe Sopan if it's. Oh wait, this isn't logging to Elasticstack, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it, or I'll take a look at it if you can recreate it.
Okay, sure. I'll do that then.
And also priority highest.
Okay, the highest one, right?
If we consider it a blocker for release.
Yes. Yep, got it. All right. Can we move on then? So failure to bring up exhaust.
This is something that we've noticed a few times where the port we're using isn't reserved. Something else takes it, and then Exodus dies because it can't use the port. Is this because this is port 5501, is this only being used inside the pod, or do we have this as a gRPC endpoint that things outside of the pod would need to see? Because if it's inside the pod, then I think this is resolved by the work Matteo is doing of using of not using DNS, but using the internal Docker connections to get things or get things hooked up inside the pod.
Yeah, I'm not aware that it's exposed externally anywhere. This is primarily used for synchronizers to talk to the core and for the Tosca engine to talk to the core. The one place where it could be used externally is if someone intended to run XOS SH externally. That would present a problem, but I don't know anyone who does that.
Also, usually if you just rerun your build step, whatever was using that port has gone away. So I don't think it's a very high priority. I don't think it's a blocker.
Okay.
So leaving it medium is fine. The other option would be for us to figure out a port to use. This seems like a fairly trivial thing, but it would be pretty fiddly because we'd have to change the port number everywhere. Maybe that's a Kubernetes thing that we solve it there by ignoring it for now, and it gets solved by Kubernetes port and IP assignments. if that's the case, I think we can move on.
Okay, so I'll just leave it as is then. And next one is Andy, 2440, networks not initializing.
So this issue we've seen occasionally, as far as I know, only on cord in a box, but the reason may just be that we build that more often than full pods. And the issue seems to be that networks in Neutron get created without subnets, and then this doesn't result in a working system. In the Neutron log, the OpenStack synchronizer is getting some error, create subnet post commit failed. I don't really know what that means. It seems like the workaround here is to just delete the networks that didn't come up in the right state and let XOS recreate them, and usually that works. So I don't really consider this a blocker. It would be nice to figure out why this happens, but it doesn't seem to be something critical. So I guess and it doesn't pop up all the time. It's just occasional. So I guess I would probably say just leave it as medium priority and not, it's not a blocker.
All right. Do you want to put the workaround there in the bug?
I think it's there.
Oh, it's okay.
But yeah, maybe we should put it in documentation. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. We should continue to build up a list of in our online docs of workarounds, and then when people ask on Slack, oh, I'm seeing this problem, we just forward them a link to the docs. So I'll add a new JIRA for that.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Yeah, I think that's helpful. All right, so next is Zach's again. 1650.
This is this probably shouldn't be a bug. This is probably supposed to be a normal ticket. But this is to refactor interface handling. This is Kubernetes support along with support for the prepped pod scenario. I'm pretty close to being done with this. I was just doing some documentation, some cleanup. Applying this is going to be kind of a pain because with the split out of the profiles, the variable names are different, and you can't commit the profile, or it's failing on the profiles because the variables aren't set in master, and it's failing on platform install because the profiles have old variables in them. So we'll have to go through that, but I think this is going to get done in the next, probably by the end of the week.
Okay. Do we want to change this to the type to story? Can we change that?
Switch it over.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. This is documentation. By Gopi. Provide exact location where an XOS service is created. Do we need the document to be updated? I don't remember about this.
This seems kind of trivial. Maybe we should. Is either Sopan or Gopi on? Personally, I think that having documentation blockers is not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure exactly what the documentation needed here and if it's a blocker. So let's
20. Yeah, maybe I'll take an action and then I'll check with Gopi and Sapan.
That'll be great.
Yes, and then I'll mark it accordingly. If it needs to be updated, then I make it blocker. All right, next one.
2521 is fixing the control cube scenario to allow VirtualBox to bring up things. I'm having some trouble with this because the VirtualBox internet interfaces are appear to have some sort of filtering that libvirt VirtualBox interfaces don't. I'm going to keep working on this, but I might run into some technical issues blocking it from working. I think this is probably going to get done, but either that or it's going to be something where we just can't get it done. So I'll know that probably by the end of the week or next week. So we're fine here.
Okay, so I just leave it as is then. No blocker.
I don't think it's a blocker. I don't think. I think it's all that is to help somebody testing if they are doing it on a Mac, and we have it working fine on Linux. So.
Okay. I think the next three are peers. I'm not sure if anybody can comment, or I can take these and then talk to Pierre about these. Anyone has any comments on this? On the next three? So, okay. So moving on to the next one. This is again QAs. Yeah, I think this is something we will keep track on. Yovang had already put a check on the Jenkins job. So this is not a blocker, but we'll monitor it.
Out of curiosity, what's the time frame? I know that Luca was saying that they were going to switch to the new Jenkins server that Linux Foundation set up. Do you know anything more about when that's going to happen?
No idea, Zach. Yeah,
okay.
I haven't heard anything. Yes. Okay, so I think this is the recent issue that the backend status and the policy status are shown incorrect even when the containers are not proper and the VSG service instances show incorrect status. So Scott, do you want this to be fixed? Is it an easy fix? Because this is quite reproducible.
Yeah, I don't think it's an easy fix. Okay. It has to do with how the service starts inside the VSG, which is, I think it's kind of started asynchronously. So we probably have to do a wait and get the status before returning from the Ansible play. Well, it may or may not be easy. I would have to dive into it. I don't think it's a blocker because this has been a problem since the VSG was created. And we really didn't decide to prioritize it until just this last week.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's not like something new that went wrong. I guess it depends on how much grief it was causing during your pod test.
Yeah, but I think recently, I think in 4.0, I haven't seen this issue, honestly, because backend status used to show the right one, like something in progress, and then the proper message used to be shown. Unlike this is strange on this pod. We haven't really checked on other pods because we are functionally not using other pods to check. But on this pod, whenever I try to test, I always see the same issue. So we can just leave it as is and not create a blocker. But in case if it is fixed, that's good. Well and good.
Yeah, I think ideally the health check on the Docker containers inside the VSG would be the ideal scenario, because I can see instances of, even if, let's say, after the subscriber's created and then TikTok does a call to see if the Docker container came up, what if at a later time, even days later, that Docker container has some issues or dies out, or what if that runs out of memory too, and then the backend status according to Xbox does change. So definitely seems like a lot of worth, not like a super easy fix, but maybe something that we need to implement, for a future release. Because I can see multiple instances of how this can correlate to a bad status.
Yeah, I think there's two issues there. One is, does it just not come up right the first time, in which that's probably the simpler of the two bugs to fix, and the other is, does it fail sometime later? And that is more of a feature than a bug, in that we just don't have a feature right now that pulls for status. But that feature can fix this bug, so they are certainly related.
Right. Yeah. So I think for now we'll just keep it as is, as medium, and next release we can make it like the highest, and then try to fix it next release at least. Is that okay, Scott?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. And it'd be nice to get to this sooner rather than later, but I agree it should not be a blocker.
Okay, sure. Thanks, Scott. So the last bug is again from QA. Yeah, so this is the calyx pod which always fails with this head prep task time. So what should we do about this, Zach or Andy?
Which one is this one?
This is the calyx pod that is failing. That always.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, this is the that it doesn't have sudo set up properly. So what's going on here is it's trying to do become, or which is sudo, to update the thing, and waiting for privilege prompt is it's waiting on the enter your password for sudo. So is there something in the calyx pod where when you set up the system, it doesn't add the user that logs into the sudoers file without authentication? Or how is that being done on other pods?
On the other pods, we are once it is set up, I think we are not doing anything. I'm not sure on calyx pod because I haven't worked. Kailash, do you have any idea?
No, I haven't worked on calyx pod either.
Okay. Yeah, let me check with Yo Wang. Today, Yo is out at Flex to set up few things.
Okay. And if you need help with it beyond that, let me know. If we need to write something that that adds things to sudoers, we can do that.
Okay, like a documentation, you mean?
Yeah. It'll probably would be just you need to do these things, or doing an auto deploy won't work. And I think it is in the documentation, but I don't think we've documented what fails, because it gets pretty far into the build before it tries to use sudo to install things.
Right. Okay. All right. Then we'll get back to you then, Zach, on this.
Sounds great.
All right. So this is on this list, and let's go to the other list. Hopefully, we can just check the high bugs here, because the list is huge. Here there are 45 bugs. On the highest ones over here, and which we haven't gone through. So the effect version, the empty effect version. So we can just check those messages. Sorry, so those bugs here. The peers, MCAST handler, and DHCP, I think we can ignore. I can check with the with that group. So moving on, I think even this is Charles. Maybe we need to ask Charles about this. Okay, I'll check with Charles on these 3 bugs. I think this fourth one is also the group table NP. Is it okay? I'm just moving. Please stop me in case you have any comments on these bugs. All right. I think we have gone through all these. These are the highest, and then the next high bugs we have already gone through those. And do we want to quickly go through the titles on the remaining bugs, which are medium priority, or do you want to take it offline? These are all medium priority bugs.
I don't see anything here that I'm aware of that's a blocker. Some of them are just correctness things. I wonder at some of these that were added, like whether they're just things that somebody noticed sometime and wrote down, but never actually triaged after that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be good for everybody to go and look through their bug backlog, especially older bugs. You can frequently, if you have some problem you reported 6 months ago, usually it's either been solved or the code that created it went away. So that's something kind of nice to do.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, then if we don't want to discuss here, then we can take these offline, and whoever got these bugs or raised these bugs, maybe they can take an action.
I see one, Suchitra, I see one bug that I resolved and fixed a while back. That's called 2059, error when slice name is not prefixed with the site name.
This one?
Yeah, that should be done with. And I joined a bit late, sorry about that. If there's something, if my name came up with any bug that needed clarification or something, then you could mention that.
Yeah.
I think there was a documentation thing.
Yeah, this is the one. This bug?
Yeah, so this all right, this Gopi assigned to me. It's a pretty quick fix. So I can get that done today or something like that.
Is this the documentation only?
I believe so. I believe that it makes a reference to a directory that it doesn't expand the full location of, and so it's a small documentation tweak.
Okay, so I'll just change it to highest and then. Okay, thanks, Sapan. Okay, how about this SSH processes, which is by Scott?
So this one, I created it when I saw the issue. I don't know that anyone has complained about this issue since, so I would not consider it critical. It's just something that does need eventual attention.
Okay. I think there is one more. If we can quickly go through the other one.
For that one specific thing, it's pretty easy to set a really low. I think it's pretty easy to set a low timeout, but I'm not sure if we're grabbing the config file. But we can talk more offline if you start looking at that one.
Yeah, I don't think that one is a difficult issue. I mean, part of the problem there is that the BSG synchronizer it runs plays that occasionally do take a long time. So we do need a timeout that encompasses however long those plays can take. But it needs to be some timeout that's not infinite. I think right now it's either infinite or very, very long. So it's probably just a matter of picking the right one and then a 5-minute Ansible fix.
Okay, that sounds good.
So Andy, is this required? 2007? Update default versions for a release?
I think Matteo already did that in the GUI. Do you know if there are other places, Andy? I mean, part of it is perhaps other places, so maybe we need to identify that. Maybe that's the real task here, is finding all the places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't know off the top of my head where all the other places are, or if they even are.
Okay, so isn't it good to have? And then we can
Right.
we can just
This is This is probably should be a blocker for the release because it influences how we make a release. So yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. All right. I think there was one more for you, Andy. I think let's check this one. FlexPort, the fabric interface is not automatically added to bond. It's not.
I haven't looked at the Flex one pod for a while. Has it been? Does anybody know if it's been passing tests lately? If this was resolved through changes to the setup script?
Yeah, it is. We are not seeing this issue anymore.
Okay, good.
We have already, a workaround. So I think we can just ignore this.
Yeah.
So Sapan, did we talk about this? 25.9?
Yeah, that's done and should be fixed. Sorry, Sam.
Okay, so this is the one we were talking. All right. Okay, so I don't see anything else here which is really important or which seems to be important. And all others I see are the fabric related bugs. So I can just check with Charles or Jono about these bugs. Okay. So anyone else? We don't have anything here. So unless anyone else has anything to bring up or talk about.
The only thing I'd say is that I think we're exactly a month from release. So if anyone has anything that is a blocker, make sure to file it in JIRA so we know to deal with it.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, and then in the meanwhile, we will be screening the bugs as well in case we have from others as well. And then we'll bring it up to you.
I don't have anything else. This has been good. Let's get to work on these.
Okay, I think we just have 3 hires. So let me update that query and then I'll just send you guys the blocker list. All right, if no one has anything else to discuss, we are done with the meeting then. All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.